It's time to have a little bit of fun. Now that my main systems are starting to mature, I've got a little bit of time to set up a new tank. You may remember this tank. It is a QBQ30. I had it set up as a freshwater tank a long time ago. And since then, it's been sitting idle in my shed. I have obviously removed the filtration and all of the lighting bits off of it. So it did have a big black bit of plastic in this corner, but that's gone. Why I like this tank is the floating base. I think it looks amazing. And what we're going to do with this is set up a super simple marine macroalgae nano tank, but with a little bit of a twist. Luckily, I have plenty of macroalgae on hand now to set this tank up. And we're going to be using some of my most favourite species, mainly stuff from this tank actually because it's easy, it's growing really well, and also the tank I'm putting it into is right next to it. We're also going to be pilfering a lot of live rock and things from this tank as well. So I've been maturing a little bit of lava rock and other live rock in this tank to get it ready, and I'm also going to be using water from this system as well. So really, this tank should be relatively mature straight away. Here's the twist though, we're not using coral sand in this tank, we're using Manado Dark. This is a freshwater substrate. However, I like the colour of it, being the fact that it's black, and also it does absorb and release nutrients, which is good for macroalgae. So we're going to treat this tank a little bit like a freshwater planted tank. This is a complete experiment. I actually have no idea whether Manado Dark is going to be any good in a reef tank. Obviously, this won't buffer the water, but that shouldn't be an issue because I'm going to be doing water changes on this tank every 2 weeks when I do my main water change on this system. So any nutrient deficiencies or buffering should be taken care of with large and regular water changes. In terms of equipment, I'm going to be using this LED reef bulb. I've had this for a long time and it does seem to do a really good job growing marine species. It does corals, it also does macroalgae. So we'll just be using that. It's going to be sitting on this bit of egg crate. I know it's a bit wild and a bit crazy, but that is the setup that we're doing here. And in terms of filtration, we're going to keep it minimalist. We're going to have this little Interpet PF mini internal filter. Yes, again, a freshwater filter, but I do marine tanks in a very similar way to how you would do a freshwater tank. So there isn't really much difference between a macroalgae system and a freshwater planted aquascape. It's all very much par for the course, except for the fact that obviously this is saltwater. One thing we don't need to do is add a heater because my shed is very well insulated, and you can see right now the air temperature is 24.9 degrees C, which is perfect for a tropical tank like this one. So I have thoroughly pre-washed my Manado Dark. It is quite a dusty and floaty substrate, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. I'm going to do it straight away because why show you a slow-mo video of me adding gravel? There we go, gravel in a tank. It looks actually quite nice. The reason I wanted to use Manado Dark was because it is a dark colour and also it benefits the macroalgae. Obviously this is a real experiment. Every time you set up a new tank you should be aiming to learn something. So from this video we're going to be, or at least this series of videos, we're going to be trying to learn whether you can use Manado Dark or other plant-based substrates in a marine tank for macroalgae. That's exciting, isn't it? I've also done it reasonably deep. It's like 2 inches there and maybe 4 inches at the back. And the reason is, obviously perspective, but also the ecosystem that a substrate, especially a reasonably deep substrate, provides in a macroalgae tank is really key. What we want is this sand bed to become live. It's part of the filtration, it's part of the ecosystem. So we're going to help it along by making it deep. I mean, in a real deep sand bed, you'd probably have it more like up here, so you get different striations, but this tank's not very big, and I think maybe 2 inches plus is going to be okay for this purpose. So using rock out of this system is a good idea as well, and if you're going to be setting up a marine tank or specifically a macroalgae tank, try and get some pre-matured rock. Don't get stuff that needs to cycle because it will help your macroalgae go into a nice mature tank. Macroalgae hates immature systems. It's one of the things that will kill it off almost certainly, and you almost saw that in my previous videos of this tank. This tank was looking horrendous because I put my macroalgae in too early and it got covered in diatoms and covered in all sorts and it almost all died. So we're going to be taking that bit, we're going to be taking this bit, and then probably one of the two larger bits over there? Well, I went ahead and added the water as well, and also the filter. Bearing in mind that this is a macroalgae tutorial, not an aquascaping tutorial. This is all about the macroalgae. I don't think it looks too bad. It looks alright, doesn't it? And the spotlight effect, I think, is really nice. I think it looks quite moody in there. What a moody, gothic looking marine tank. I like it very much. The next job is obviously to add some macroalgae to it. Now look, normally I would say give your tank at least 6 weeks before you add any livestock to it. But as I've already mentioned, we have got very mature rock in here. And I've already seen amphipods and copepods going around. There's obviously an astarina in there. There was a brittle starfish poking his little legs out as well. So I'm fairly certain, now that's always a bad thing, isn't it, being certain about something, but I'm fairly hopeful that this won't really cycle too badly. There is also some macroalgae on this rock here, a little bit of Gracilaria mammillaris, so that's nice, so I chose it. And the tiniest little bit of Gracilaria, I don't really know what the species is, but it tends to be brown and branching. It's really nice. So we'll see if that survives. Hopefully it will. In terms of macroalgae species, we're going to add some blue octodes because I love blue octodes. If you don't know what it is, then you're in for a treat. This is blue octodes. It's blue, which is really unusual for marine macroalgae species. You're normally used to red and green species, but here we are, blue. Very, very special. And I've always found this one to be a really quick grower in the right conditions. Loves water changes. To keep this guy alive, you need to continually do water changes. As soon as nutrients run out, you're in big trouble. The interesting thing is though, under normal light, it's just brown, isn't it? Like, when people get this and they go, well, it's supposed to be blue, this is how it looks. It looks brown and horrible until you get it under that nice actinic light. Then you're in for the treat of the fluorescent blue. And we're just going to stick it right on top of this rock here. This stuff does tend to attach itself really quickly to the rockwork. So as long as you can wedge it in, normally within a day or two, it has attached itself. And look, you can now see the fluorescent blue colour. Strange, isn't it? It's amazing how it goes from being a horrible browny grey colour to that lovely blue colour. And we're not actually going to add anything else to that rock, because the idea with this is it's going to grow and cover that entire top surface of rock. And anything we put below it is pretty much going to be toast. There's a dove snail in that rock as well. Look, there he is. So that's one of the benefits of adding live rock from a main system or a mature system, is you get hitchhikers like this wonderful dove snail. Caulerpa prolifera, which is this lovely grass looking one. It's not seagrass, it is its own macroalgae, but this is a huge favourite of mine. I love this stuff because it looks so wavy, doesn't it? It gives you that real sense of movement which you love in a marine tank. You like to see things sort of moving around and flowing, and this stuff gives you that. It also gives you that vibrant green colour, which is really nice. It's going to offset that black colour really well. So I'm going to go ahead and get some of it out. So this is what it looks like when you've taken it out of the substrate. You've got your runner, when my camera focuses here, you've got a runner, you've got some root-like structure, and you also have your leaf-like structures. Now actually, Caulerpa is all one cell. So this is in fact just one cell, but each part of the macroalgae can change to be a different thing. So believe it or not, it just changes its cell structure or its structure to do different things. You know, in a terrestrial or aquatic plant, you'd think you've got roots, stem and leaf, but that is not the case for Caulerpa. Amazing, isn't it? So Caulerpa prolifera prefers substrate, i.e. growing on gravel, than it does growing on rockwork. However, it will grow on rocks when that's all it can do, but when you plant it, think of it as Anubias, that freshwater plant. If you think about an Anubias where you can't plant the rhizome below the substrate because it rots, that's a similar idea to Caulerpa prolifera. You want to have the stem growing along the surface of the substrate, and you want to have the roots just slightly below, just to anchor it in. And then from there, it will obviously do its own thing and grow in the correct way. So I'm going to add 2 more species. I know I said I was only going to add the octodes to that bit of rock at the back, but actually I think we need a bit of red in there. So we're going to add some Botryia cladia. That is this red bubbly grape algae. Now you might be familiar with it. It's one of my favourites, actually. I know I've said that about every macroalgae I've spoken about so far, but this one really is one of my favourites. It's also a really temperamental macroalgae. They all are a bit temperamental, but this one I find is either a boom or bust. If it doesn't like your tank, it's going to die. So make sure, again, regular water changes and stability. It hates unstable systems. In terms of planting Botrocladia, it's really easy. Firstly, it doesn't go in the substrate. It always goes on rocks, and when people super glue it, that's a mistake as well because it just tends to rot the stem. So I will just find a hole in this rock here, which handily there's one right there, and you just wedge it in. Eventually, if it is happy, it will attach itself to that rock. It basically, like a soft coral, part of its base will just merge onto that rock, and that's how it kind of grows. So just keep it in the hole. Obviously, I did say that this Octodes will probably grow over this, and it will, and I'll just have to manage that and make sure it doesn't by pruning. And then finally, we're going to add a little bit of Codium. Codium is quite a slow grower, but the good thing about Codium is it doesn't require a great deal of light, which is ideal because this little bit is just going to go in the corner where obviously there's not as much light as the rest of the tank, but it will do just fine. I've had this stuff growing in almost the dark before, and it just doesn't mind. I'll just stick it there. It doesn't require any form of attachment. It's quite happy just to sit in an area, and it will just grow like that from that little nodule. You can stick it wherever you want. If you want to wedge it in a rock, you can, but it's quite happy where it is. So there we have it. We're all planted up. Now, I have got a lid for this. I'm going to add that at the end of the video or after the video is finished because, you know, it's a lid. But I think it looks really nice, doesn't it? We're going to see how this does. This is an experiment. So we're going to really treat this as a VIP tank. We're going to keep up with the maintenance. We're going to keep it really looking smart. And we're going to see how this Manado does. Now, my routine for water changes is probably going to be 50% every 2 weeks. Big regular water changes. What that does is keeps the nutrients, all the stuff that you don't really know about in salt water, keeps that in tip-top condition, and then that will allow the macroalgae to grow. Hopefully this calliope doesn't go sexual. It shouldn't do because it's in the same water as it's just come from, so ideal. And then lighting wise, we'll see how this goes. I don't really know the spread of the light. Hopefully there's enough light for that Botrocladia because obviously, you know, it's quite close to the surface of the tank. I might have to upgrade the light down the line. There's a nice night crew light that I've been looking at, so I might go ahead and get one of those. We will see. We will see. The macroalgae will tell us how it feels. And hopefully this stuff on the rock here will be grown by the next time I do a video. In terms of livestock, absolutely nothing for the minute. We'll let it mature, let it see how it does. Obviously there are some hitchhikers, we've got some snails and things already. I might put some hermits in there just to do a little bit of grazing. But it's only day one. Let's see how the tank matures, and then we'll assess it in a week or two, see what we need to do. So, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Just a nice, easy tank to do, isn't it? An easy one to make. Obviously, I've got it all on hand, but you could do this at home quite easily. We've got a freshwater filter, freshwater tank, nothing special. Cheap LED light from Amazon, freshwater substrate, and then a little bit of live rock. Obviously, the hardest part of this whole thing is obtaining a macroalgae. Well, if you're in the UK, that's easy because you just contact me on my website. It'll be in the description, and it's plantedreef.co.uk, and I actually have everything in this tank for sale at the moment. So if you want to get some, then now is your chance. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, please leave a like and also subscribe because I'm going to be doing regular updates on this aquarium. Once again, thanks for watching and happy fish keeping.